I'm Carlene, and this is Diva Tonight. We are changing things up a little bit tonight. I have with me Dr. Alain Salas. He is the creator of the Goal and Success Clearing. So basically, you help other entrepreneurs with their goals, especially with your track record, 4,267 clients and counting. And you have the #1 best-selling book for chiropractic physician and mind and body for expert on Amazon. So you obviously have a background in chiropractic.
Yeah, that's my basic things. And after I specialize in mind and clearing, the book that I wrote like maybe 10 years ago was about the brain power secret, right? And after I got intrigued with the mind, and what I discovered has been leading me to create the mind clearing system. And in the mind clearing system, the goal and success clearing, and also the body clearing, which is about treating pain, symptom, and inflammation in your body, right? And so that's more for the physical healing part. And for the mind, also, like the goal and success clearing is about how to, well, we're going to talk about that, but how to bring the subconscious mind to the party and use 100% of your mind power to be successful and achieve your goals.
So when you use the mind clearing system, how is it different than like meditation, mindfulness? You know, there's a lot of self-development programs that have become very popular now. So your mind clearing system, you said you're targeting the pain. So how does that work?
Yeah, so it's much more specific, right? Because there's different way I do my self-meditation hour there, right? In the morning, like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, depends what I'm in mood for, right? But basically, you want something specific though, right? You know, is it like, what is it that you don't like in your life that you want to change, right? And so that's basically what the mind clearing is about. And so our change, the deepest changes that we can have, it's in our subconscious mind. And I'm sure we'll talk about that more deeply, but and so there's one thing. And the second thing is you want to make sure that you speak the same language but the subconscious mind. I used to travel a lot. And what was the most frustrating in my traveling, it's like when I met a cool guy or a cool girl, and I couldn't communicate because we didn't speak the same language. It was very frustrating, right? And so imagine in that podcast, we lose the sound, right? I mean, sound goes down. So I'm going to communicate with sign language, or I'm going to write down some stuff. And some people actually can have only the audio, right? So you won't be able to communicate, right? And so that's why when you communicate the same language than the subconscious mind does, well, it's much easier. Everything is much easier. You can target whatever you want to correct, right? You don't even need to identify what's the problem. You need to say, okay, I don't want this. I want this instead, and I want to make sure it's going to happen into my life. Those are basically the 3 steps of my mind clearing. Delete what you don't want, the program you don't want, right? Download what you want instead, and after create or manifest that into your life.
I think that sounds great, but I think it sounds to me like it's a different way of thinking. And I think depending on, like you said a lot of things in terms of communication. And I think a lot of us have like negative self-talk or just things in our mind. So when you say you can't are you talking the language barrier, or is it something else? Like, what was the issue when you met that person? Like, you met a nice gal or a nice guy?
Well, what I mean by that, it's like you have to understand how the subconscious mind communicates, right? Because it's we've got kind of a 2 mind, right? We're living in 2 worlds in the same time. Right, so one is called the outer world, right? And so the outer world is what we call our conscious mind. So it's basically, you know, your self-identity, your personality, who you think you are, you know. So that's definitely your conscious mind and what you are aware of. So you're aware of what? Your thought, your emotion, your behavior, and your action, right? And so it's basically how you perceive your reality, the outside world, right? And after you've got another mind that is like very hidden, it's very secretive, you know, you don't really know what's going on. And it's called the subconscious mind, right? And the subconscious mind records everything, Carlene, that you have been doing in your life. Every single thing is recorded there. There's no secret. And
There's some
for the good
secrets
and
I
the
just
bad,
won't tell. What you made me think of is Freud, Sigmund Freud, from when I learned in university. There is, you're talking about the conscious and the subconscious, and Freud talked about the id, the ego, and the superego, which is the ego is, like your what you think about yourself, like, because a lot of people think with their ego and that they're macho, and like a guy is like macho, strong, intelligent, and that's the way that he carries himself, right? Whereas the id and the ego, they affect that in itself. So it takes three stages of the mind. So when you're talking about the conscious mind, which is what is happening, and the subconscious is, sounds to me, is like that's that talk where you're someone's talking to you, but you're also thinking, oh, something about that person, right?
yeah, well, the conscious mind is basically your ego, right? That's
Yeah.
what we're aware of. That's what your ego, we always think the ego is a bad thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing, because it's how you can perform also in life, right? That can be a lifesaver. If there's a tiger, you fight and flight, and I want to go, right? If I cross the street, I need to use my analytical mind, my ego, right? But it can be in the way when it's negative, right? And so how can the ego can be negative? It's because it's not coming from the ego itself. It's coming from the subconscious mind, because the subconscious mind, not only like there's, like I said, it just everything has been recorded, right, in your life, but also it's like where your skills as a podcaster, mother, whatever it is, right? It's all the skill you need to perform in life, they are coming from your subconscious mind, right? Also, like your automatic process in your body, like in your physiology, that you don't have to think about it, like your heartbeat, your breathing, your digestion, it's coming from your subconscious mind, right? And you can talk about superego and all that. I like to keep things simple, right? If you're conscious, you're not conscious, period. And after, it's like elaboration. Now, talking about Freud, I think is nice, but what I like better is Carl Jung, because Carl Jung was really the master for me. And it's the one that says, if you really want to transform yourself and heal yourself, you need to make the subconscious conscious. And so it means to me that he had a profound understanding. And actually, Jung was a disciple of Freud, and after they had different ideas and they separate, as you know, right? But basically, so this is it. So that's subconscious world. It's very mysterious, right? And so what it is really. And so I want to tell two things to your audience, right? The number one things is like your conscious mind collect data at 11 bits per second, right? 11 bits per second. That's what we are aware of. We have conscious mind. Our subconscious mind collect data at 11 million bits per second. It means I'm right here talking to you, and the information that I'm aware of, it's only 11 bits per second. And the information that I'm not aware of, it's basically 11 million times more. So that's crazy, right? I mean, that's very intriguing. So I started to dig more about the subconscious mind. And what I'm going to tell you guys, maybe it's going to have you rethink about who you are truly, right? So our conscious mind is only 5 or 10% of our mind, meaning that our subconscious mind is 90 to 95% of our mind, meaning that when you want to heal yourself, when you want to transform yourself, when you want to grow, what you're going to be focused on your conscious mind, meaning that you're going to use only 5 or 10% of your mind power. So I thought, why not bring 90 to 95% of your mind power to the party in order to achieve your goal, to resolve your problem and the challenge that you have in life. Does it make sense to you, Caroline?
Yeah, it does. Because we don't use that much part of, like, they say the average person only uses a certain percentage of their brain, right? And so if we were able
On
to
our mind.
use of our mind, yes, but you're saying that there's a way to do that with the mind clearing system that you've created, obviously.
Yeah,
Am I correct?
you have to talk the same language. Exactly. Right? That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I made things complicated because I'm an
No,
English.
everybody
No, no, no.
does.
Yes, we do. But I'm an English major first. And so I'm just remembering how I can relate to the conscious versus the subconscious mind.
Sure.
But of course, I think when things are simple, we understand better. And so we can relate. So as long as we're on the same page, whereas you're not on page 12 and I'm on page 13, then, it makes things complicated, right?
Yeah, and to make things even simpler, if you compare the mind to a computer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's do that. So the brain will be the hard drive because the brain is the physical aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
Your software will be your subconscious mind, right? Your programs, right?
Yeah.
And basically, the output of the software is your conscious mind. And after your behavior is reflected on the screen or the screen of life, right? So if you've got good programming, you're going to love, you're going to love what you see on your screen, right? If you've got programming that are not good for you, you're going to hate what you see in the screen of life. So that's basically what it is, right? We all have been programmed. You have been programmed. I have been programmed. Everybody listening to that program has been programmed. And this program happen a lot from 0 to 7 years old because we're like sponges. Actually, we use different brain waves. We use theta wave, beta wave. And so it's almost like we are in a hypnotic stage, right? And so what we see in the outside world, we think it's the truth, right? Okay. So we assume things. And if you assume things 1 or 2 or 3 times, it becomes a program. And that program is stored in your subconscious mind. So we're not really aware of all the program we have been acquired by mostly other people or different circumstances in our life. So you've got two kind of program, Colin. You've got programs that are serving you, right? And so it's kind of like your mind is working for you instead of working against you, right? When you've got the best day, everything is unfolding, oh, I'm rocking it today. That's wonderful, right? And so we call that empowering belief, right? Empowering belief. That's the good programming, the positive programming. And of course, you've got the other one, right? When your mind is working against you, like, man, you cannot do anything today. You're even counterproductive. You wish you would have stayed in bed, right? Because what you're doing is not working and it's almost harming you. You see what I mean? We all have days like that, right? So it's when your mind is working against you instead of working for you. And we call that limiting belief or negative programming to keep it simple, right? And so if you've got lots of negative programming, right, you're not going to like what you see on the screen of life, right? You say, if you ask me, how you doing? I say, oh man, life is always suffering. Everybody, all my friends around me are successful and I'm a nobody, and I'm always, struggling and all that. But if my software, right, in my program, it's like with very good empowering belief or positive programming. You ask me, how you doing? I say, oh, never better, man. I mean, wonderful people on different podcasts, I cannot believe I created that technique that can help so many people and I need to spread it out. And that's really the last purpose of my life, right? There's no way I'm going to retire. I'm passionate and I love what I do. So, I mean, that's what makes the difference. So we don't want those negative programming to be overpowering us, right? Because what happened is, in a way, a very simple way, it's our past, because we can be programmed anytime, right? 0 to 7, there's lots of programming, right? But we can be programmed anytime, like in case of PTSD, if you've got a big trauma in your life, right? That's going to affect your life big time, right? So that's going to be a negative program or limiting belief in your software, right? In your subconscious. And so we want to make sure that our past, because this is all acquired from our past. At conception, ideally, we have no program. And after, when we are in the belly of the mom, because the mom can have negative experiences that can be passed on and even rewire the brain of the fetus, right? And so we start to have program. But basically, even when we are born, why we love so much the baby? Because they have no ego. The conscious mind is very minimal, right? And so it means it's all subconscious mind, right? And after we start to have some negative programming, like the limiting belief that we don't have. If you scare a baby because, if you burn a baby by accident, right? The baby is going to remember that, right? And maybe be afraid of everything that's hot and smelly or whatever it was, right? And that creates a program, right? And so those programs are acquired mainly from others and some specific situation that have been traumatic, right? And so we want, if you want to be on control in your life, you want to make sure that you can correct those limiting beliefs, right? You want to delete them, download instead some empowering beliefs, and make sure you can create that in your life, right? Like that, you can change literally all the things you don't like in your life.
Yeah, how do you start doing that though? Because I think there's different ways to change the negative beliefs you have in your mind. There's various things to do, but your with your system, what do you think is the
Well,
starting
if you
point?
look,
Like where? Yeah.
well, if you look at the field they say, oh, you need to journal. In my field, that's what they say. You need to journal. You need to feel this. You need to do a ton of affirmation, a ton of visualization, and literally have an iron will, and hope for the best. And on
Hmm.
top of that, they tell you need to find out what are your limiting beliefs. I say, well, good luck. You're telling me that you're going to use 5 or 10% of your mind power to crack 90 to 95% of your mind power. Good luck. That's all I have to say. And that's why it's not very specific, right? And that's
No,
why
it's not.
it's so hard to make it happen. With the mind clearing, it's like remember we
Is
make
it
the
like
analogy.
hypnosis? Like I feel like
No, it's not. No, no,
no,
no,
it's
no.
not.
Nothing to do with
No.
hypnosis. Nothing to do. The
I
only
know.
thing that is common
Yes.
is we access
Yeah.
the subconscious mind. That's it.
Yeah.
But it's basically, let's see, you've got a program you don't like in your computer, right? So step number one, you're going to delete your program. After, you're going to go to the Play Store and get and download a program that works better for you. After, what you're going to see on the outcome you're going to see on the screen, you're going to like it. That's it. That's that simple. So what is the same language but the subconscious mind is pictures. Because when you remember a dream, you always remember, right? A dream is coming from your subconscious mind. You always remember a picture, a series of picture, a movie, right? And
Hmm.
so the key is like what I created is literally a program that you're going to send to, you're going to visualize you, for example, if you are too anxious, right? You don't like to be too anxious, right? So you're going to
Yeah.
visualize a picture in which you are very anxious, right? And you
Hmm.
have to be in that picture, and you're going to send that program to you in that picture. I will help you to customize the program to you specifically, and we delete that. And after, I will ask you visualize totally the opposite, what you want instead of being anxious. So you say maybe I want to be peaceful, right? So I ask you visualize that, the picture that will make you feel that you're really peaceful. You have to be on that picture, and I will customize that program to you. I'm just a guide helping you to use 90% of your ability to heal yourself, basically, right? To use your subconscious mind, right? And so
Yeah.
basically, that's because that's your picture. It's not mine, right? That make a big
So
difference.
are we fully in control of our actions and reactions to like our conscious mind? Because it sounds to me like the subconscious mind affects the conscious mind a lot, like,
Everything,
yeah,
90% of it, 95% of it. So everything is like a given, but everything that you don't like, you react, why did I say that? What I did, or it's coming from your
yeah.
subconscious mind.
Like, I'll
And
give
that's
you an
why when you,
example. Like, here's the thing. Like, yesterday I was
uh-huh,
at work and I made a mistake. So when I cashed out, like, I was over and I'm fixated on it. Like, even though, like, we've already
yeah.
finished the transact, like, I've already cashed out, my shift lead's already done dealing with that. But in my mind, I'm like, where did I make the mistake? And I'm trying to figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, there's only one way to pinpoint it, but that's just me wanting to know. I know like how it's possible that it didn't balance, right? It's a small amount, but I sometimes like you said, in your mind, you're like fixated on this. Like, how could I prevent that? What did I do? Did I give the wrong change? Like, all these things that, percolate in your mind because you're just like, well, for the most part, I usually have no issues when I cash out. You know what I mean? So when I do make a mistake, I harp on it for a longer period
Yeah,
of
but
time.
you do that because the way it makes you feel.
Yeah.
See, because that's the way it makes you feel bad about it, and that's why you are you are fixated on that. So here's like another way to see the mind. Let's visualize a triangle, right? And
Mhm.
inside you've got limiting belief, right? So let's pretend my limiting belief. I've been told when I was young I'm a loser, right? So my
Mhm.
limiting belief is a loser. So I'm going on top of a triangle. That's my thinking, right? So I'm going to think I'm a loser. On the bottom right side is the way I feel my emotion. So I'm going to feel like a loser. On the bottom left side of a triangle, is basically my behavior and action. So I'm going to behave like a loser. So I'm going to have loser result, right? If I've got loser result, I'm going to feel even more that I'm a loser. I'm going to think, man, I knew I was a loser, but such a loser, right?
Oh my
And that's going
gosh.
to
Yeah.
reinforce what we call the subconscious stress loop. That is in your a program, a loop running in your subconscious mind you're not even aware of. So in your case, if I take your example, you thought the thinking is like, how could I make a mistake? Right? So it makes you feel in a certain way, maybe guilty, maybe shame, maybe whatever it is for you, right? And after your behavior translates that because you cannot stop thinking about it, right? You're going to be fixated on that. And so your action is going to be fixated on that. And more you fixated on that, more you're going to feel more like the negative feeling that I express, right? And you're going to think even more, man, how could I make a mistake? I'm such an idiot, or whatever you're going to say, right? You see what I mean? And we caught up on those loop. That's why we can get out of it's hard to get out of that things. That's why we get fixated on things.
Diva Tonight. Glamour for your ears. This is 40, a female perspective.
We talked about this whole methodology, but, Dr. Salas, I do want to say that starting from the beginning, you currently live in Kansas City. Like, I want to start a little bit about you so that
Sure.
whoever's listening know a little bit about who you are and how you got here, right? So you currently live in Kansas City, but we hear that European accent, right? So tell me a little bit about that. Yes, really.
Come on, you are the first person who was telling me that.
No, I hear it. I'm paying attention. You're either francophone. You're definitely not anglophone, but
yeah, I'm French. I used to live on my sailing boat actually in south of France, right? And I used to rent boats. And I was living the life. I was young. I was at 22 years old. I started my own business, never looked back, right? And so I was, traveling a lot when I was not working. I was working maybe 7 months a year. So for me, life was about adventure, right? And I figured out why, it was so important for me to have a boat because my dad was a very negative person. That's why he got sick, and couldn't work after 40 years old in one of disability, but very controlling. So I wanted freedom, right? For me, it was all about freedom, obviously, to respond to that, right? And so what is the symbolism of freedom? A boat, obviously, right? I couldn't be a bird. So a boat will have been the next thing.
You could have gotten
right?
a plane, but
yeah, but the boat depends on nature. The wind. Remember, it's a sailing boat, so the wind just bring you there, and so it's more. And so for me, it was adventure, right? So I used to party a lot, and after when I was visiting other countries for months at the time, party more. So I was living the life. Like everybody said, man, that's perfect. But after I had a calling one day after 8 or 9 years, doing this, and I saw myself helping people. And so for me, it became, I'm blessed, actually my calling and my purpose has been given to me. I was minding my own business. They used to call me the gypsy. I had to maybe have even longer hair than you do, right? And party all the time. And so imagine when I told my parents, I said, oh, you know what? I'm going to go to the US, become a doctor. Well, I was crazy. They knew I was crazy, but not that much.
That is definitely the adventure side of you. You know what I mean? Because I wanted to go away for school too, but like my parents were like, my mom was like, no, you're going to stay here, go to school. I wanted to go to, at one point, I wanted to either go to Western or McGill, like somewhere outside of the house. Like you said, when your parents are so strict and negative, you want to get out as quickly as possible, but I did move out when I was 22, but listening to you talk about like the life of just leaving home, like that is, I think for many, like a really hard decision to make. And when you do it, you're like, do you think it was worth it in the end? Now that you think back, do you have any regrets?
Never. I never had any regret in my life because I understand that everything happened to me, even if I judges that it's negative, right? Oh man, why this? I don't say that, because either it's all about perspective in life, right? So if you see yourself like a victim mode, remember we talk about that, oh, why me and all that, right? So if
Yeah.
I'm a victim mode, I'm going to see all the challenges coming on my life that are against me, right? That they want to be negative towards me, right? But
Hmm.
there's another way to see that a way that you are creating your life, right? So everything happens for a reason, right? And so what's going on when you've got challenges, or say you should bless it because it's a way for you to learn about yourself, right? That's it. So when you understand that there's always a reason when things are happening, this the challenge. That's why I don't say problem, I say challenge. Because a problem is negative, a challenge is not. It doesn't have to be. So a challenge are going to teach you something. And if you learn that the wisdom that comes with a challenge, right, is not going to happen again. And you're going to raise your level of consciousness, right? You're going to become a better person for sure, right? And so that's how I see life. So for me, there's no way I can have any regrets. There's always a stepping stone, making me going higher and higher. And with a mind clearing, that's the same thing because let's see if you've got regrets, right? We'll do mind clearing on that. We'll delete the regret instead of what you have been regretting. We replace it, but we download, what you wish you would have done, and you create a different action and different behavior after. You don't have that regrets anymore.
Yes, that is so true. But I think it takes time to unlearn those behaviors, especially if you've been conditioned in that environment for so long. I say we talk about negative behaviors, but like if you grew up in a household where you were told you're stupid over and over again, you start to believe it. And then, or like you want to, like for me, I'll give you an example. It took me a long time to get out of that mindset with my mother, who was always like, it just seemed like nothing would ever make her happy. If I got
Good enough.
85, why can't you get a 90? And it was, yeah, nothing was ever good enough. And just the sheer motivation for me was always trying to excel. But then once you get to that stepping point, you're like, well, it just seems like there's nothing ever going to be good enough. So now I have to do it for myself, not to prove to my mom that the self-proclaiming prophecy that I'm going to make her happy. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
That's why you felt so guilty when you make a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah. I know this. Yeah. Sometimes I try not to.
We think it takes time because we're using only 5 or 10% of our mind. With a mind clearing and technology like that, it doesn't take time. It's 1-2 treatment. You're done. You're done with this.
Yeah, yeah.
You see, that's why we think it takes time. And sometimes it takes so much time that it never happens. Because this program is so negative. You see, that's the thing, because you don't speak the same language. You can do all the therapy that you want, talking about Freud. You can do all the therapy that you want. It's not going to heal you. It's not possible because you're dealing with only 5 or 10% of your mind. So how successful you are, that's going to maybe bring you some ha-ha moment, but it's never going to change your programming. Your subconscious programming is not going to be changed. Nowhere, because you use only your conscious mind. And I will argue that it can make you worse. Why? Remember the loop we described, I'm a loser, right? So more you're going to talk about the story, more you're going to reinforce those feelings and all that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Why I cannot get out of that pattern, right? I'm telling my therapist and all that is telling me to do this and that. It still doesn't work. So that's going to reinforce that program. That's going to drive you nuts. Why? Because it's not the cause of the problem. Here it is. I believe in the law of cause and effect. What does it mean? For every cause, there's an effect. For every effect, there's a cause. By the way, for my kids, I say cause and consequences. I've got 8 years old. I said, there's cause and consequences. You did this, that's your consequence, what you have to, okay? Anyway, so it means that if you draw that wisdom, right, from the cause and effect, it means that if you've got a problem, and I say a problem, right, not a challenge. If you've got a problem in life, right, and you want to resolve it permanently, you need to know 2 things. You need to know, number 1, what's causing your problem and how to fix it, right? So if we adapt that, is it your conscious mind causing the problem? No, so we cannot fix it. Period. We're done. End of discussion. That's how we'll debate with a therapist. I'm not doing that. I'm not saying that don't have a good heart and they don't want to help you, right? I'm not saying that. I'm not saying they've got bad intention. Of course I'm not. But what I'm saying, they don't have the right technology. And it's proven. For example, you go to my website, I've got much more testimonial coming in, but you can look at testimonial, like a testimonial of one person was hoarding, hoarding when they accumulate things.
Yes,
She
yes,
tried
yeah.
everything. He had one treatment of mind clearing. The next day, she ordered a container and cleaned up all the things with the help of her daughter. That's how powerful it can be.
Mm-hmm. No, it's good. It's good for sure. How does it work usually? Like, I mean, you're in the US, I'm here in Canada. Like, if anyone wants to try this method because they've
Yeah.
tried other things, they go on your website, which is, what is it called again? What's your website?
Themindclearing.com, themindclearing.com.
Themindclearing.com. Yeah,
They
I've
go to
checked it out.
contact.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they go to
Yeah.
contact and there's a form that shows up. And like you said, because we can talk about this forever, but if you don't experience this, you don't know. That's basically it, right? Because we
Yeah.
are meant to experience things. That's how we get the thing. So whatever is bothering you, we'll grade it from 0 to 10, 10 being the worst. And you visualize your picture. You say, oh, it's an 8 over 10. And at the end of the session, we last an hour. It should be 0 or 1. And if the feelings come back, it means you've got more resistance that trigger that program. And so we go after the circumstances of why it has been reset and we're done. That's it.
I love how you make the brain sound like it's a program, like we could just reprogram it. You know what I mean? And just,
But it is.
yeah, it is. Have you ever, this is a side note. This is my brain work here. Have you ever seen the movie with Jim Carrey? It's called, what's it called? My gosh. Anyways, the movie is this, okay? So the main concept is that he meets this girl and they have this incredible like love story and everything's complicated. And I guess she doesn't want to be with him anymore. So she erases him from her mind. So she goes to a doctor and she erases him completely. So like when he finally sees her again, like she has no recollection of who he is because of what they've done. Now this is a movie, but I mean, in many ways, I guess.
But what's different? It's like you still know it doesn't impact you. See, that's the thing, because you're always going to have challenge in life. Life is a vibration. Everything is a vibration, like a wave, right? So you've got positive and negative. Doesn't mean good and bad, right? So in life that it's not going to be rosy and butterfly and picky and all that all the time. Of course not. That's not how it works. When in Disney, when they say, oh, they're married and they will be happily ever after, we know it's a bunch of BS. That's not how it works, right? And so the problem is not having the challenging. The problem is how you react to it, right? If you keep like peace of mind, an open heart, and an open will, right? If you're like this, you can cruise from that, right? And you can learn from it, right? But if you get like overwhelming emotion, because of that, what's happening to you, if you've got like negative thought, overwhelming emotion, and undesirable behavior, therefore unproductive and uninspired action, of course, that's not going to work for you, right? And so you're going to be caught up on that spiral, that negative programming. Remember that subconscious stress loop. And it's like you say, it's hard to get out of it because the tool that you have been told to use will never get you out of it. That's patchwork because you're using only 5 or 10% of mind. I know what I'm saying is very controversial, right? Say, well,
of course, because there's
everybody
so many
therapy.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I'll explain and I prove it by the results.
Yes, I understand that. And it's not only therapy that people are using, but there's also self-improvement courses and workshops, exactly. And so
all what we do in life is if you bring the subconscious mind to the party, like Carl Jung said again, if you bring the subconscious conscious, miracle happen. And you realize how powerful you are. You're not a victim. You're not the little me. You're not 5 or 10% of your mind. You're so much more because you were conceived with 100% of that mind power. And after you've got all those limiting beliefs, that goes in a way. The way if I zoom out to have people understand better what I'm talking about, like the ultimate things about talking about consciousness, right? So visualize like, for example, God, awareness,
Yes.
whatever you want to call him, whatever is your belief system, is the sun, right? And after a spark of the sun creates your spirit, right? And this is all non-duality, like pure love, no good and bad and things like that. And after you've got the sky, right? And after you've got the physical you and me, right? Some people, there are so many clouds in the sky, they say, there's no sun. Never felt it. Doesn't exist, right? And so what is the cloud? What are the clouds? They are your limiting belief. So when you start to get rid of some limiting belief, now you can take a glimpse at the sun, right? You realize, oh, it's there. Now you can feel the warmth of the sun. And so you get rid of more and more limiting belief, and you're getting more connected to your spirit. And after you've got the awakening, the realization that you're not only flesh and bone, you are spirit living a physical experience. And that's a game
Okay.
changer for your life.
I know, but the thing is, I think with anyone who is listening is finding the realization that you want to try something new like this, because it's hard to wrap your mind around it. You know what I mean? Because it's like anything new, it's a new way of thinking. And so maybe even just the book itself would be the starting point for them to be like, okay, let me read your book and see if this is like, read the book first so that they can get a better understanding, right? Because with anything new in life, we are always going to be rigid. I find even me just listening to you say it,
Oh.
a part of me is saying, oh, this seems like something that is positive and reinforcing the fact that, if I use more of my mind, I'll be able to achieve the goals that I want to achieve. Like, it's not that I haven't achieved so many goals like yourself. Like you said, depending on the kind of person you are, you will persevere, right? So I think with anything in life, it takes the power to want to do it. Like, you have to, like, determination, like, there's so many things, but you have to have the want and the desire to change, because some people never change.
Well, that's what they say about insanity, right?
Yes, insanity.
You're
The
going to
quote
get the
is,
same result.
yes, the same
Yeah,
result, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Yes, that
that's
is
it.
true.
So
Yes.
either you do that, which is insanity, right? Or you
Yeah.
just say, you know what, there's nothing that can help me, right? And so that's why I want to tell people, if you think that you have been everywhere and trying everything, there's hope for you. It's like they didn't find what was causing your problem, and or they don't know how to fix it. That's that simple. It's not complicated at all. That's that simple. And so there's this new technology that I created that can really help. And so if your gut feeling, right, which is basically your subconscious mind, right, that's your intuition, the wisdom of your subconscious mind talk to you and say, I'm going to try it. What do you have to lose?
Diva Tonight with Carlene will be back. Send us a message on Instagram at diva_tonight.
Waiting on the silence, already there.